You wake up, put on your Ray-Ban Meta glasses. You're living all in. You realize you need coffee. So you say,
"Hey, Meta, how do I make a latte?"
Brew 2 shots of espresso.
after Meta AI gets you caffeinated, you're ready for some beats.
"Hey, Meta, play hip-hop music."
You head to meet some friends, but can't remember the place.
"Hey, Meta, call Eva."
Ray-Ban Meta glasses, the next generation of AI glasses. Just say, hey, Meta, to harness the power of Meta AI. Shop now at meta.com/smartglasses.
How to have fun, anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Take a deep dive into the stories making the news headlines across the world.
The news agents.
We're not just here to tell you what's happening, but why. From me, Emily Maitlis.
And me, John Sopel.
With Global's award-winning podcast, The News Agents, dropping daily, covering everything you need to know about politics and current affairs.
And The News Agents USA.
Listening to The News Agents on America's #1 podcast network, iHeart. Open your free iHeart app and search The News Agents to start listening.
This is your
Violence is out of the question.
Leader Fan Radio Network.
And that's a fact.
And KFAN.com. 2 minutes and 21 seconds past the hour of 3 o'clock Central Standard Time. Welcome back. Thursday edition, bumper to bumper show, 3-hour tour. Very Gilligan's Island-like today on a, rather snowy, rather stormy Thursday afternoon here in the Twin Cities that we affectionately refer to as Minneapolis and St. Louis Park. My name is Dan Barreiro. I host the program. Guardsy produces the show. And as I said, we will be here for the next 3 hours with a power-packed guest lineup. We're both out tomorrow. Russo in, for the record. He will be in this chair tomorrow beginning at 3 o'clock, much to the delight of Kevin Fallness and I'm assuming the rest of the hockey community.
Well, maybe. I mean, they kind of have a rivalry, too.
That's true, yeah. That's the weird thing. There's some tension. There's some creative tension there, for sure.
Fallness just doesn't like anybody.
So we're squeezing everything in today, basically, that we're accustomed to having on Friday, other than Lavelle. Lavelle is the odd man out this week.
He's going to join Russo tomorrow.
Oh, he's going to join Russo. Okay, even better. Ben Gessling will be with us at 5:30 this evening. The prediction segment with Carl Gerbschmidt moved up a day. He will be with us at 4:30. John Athletic will file a live report. Maybe not yet at Target Center by then, but he will be later tonight for the return, of course, of Karl Anthony Towns. And Sean Salisbury is scheduled to join us about little less than 30 minutes from now, Thursday, regular Sean Salisbury. We will name the first Tsnownami of the year. We're very excited about that. I don't even know if the committee decided on a new threshold, but I think basically it looks to me like we've had 4 to 5 to 6 inches of snow in that range. It's enough.
Yeah, it's a healthy event.
That I think we can indeed go with it, and we appreciate all the suggestions. I will advise you in the future, if you want to help with ideas, stay away. We're not really all that interested in puns. A lot of people like to go with the puns. We're not really into the pun thing when it comes to the Tsnownami. Playing off the word snow. You're better off playing off a theme of somebody or something that we've been talking about or that's been in the news. And it doesn't have to be the toy department news. It could be the real world news as well, whatever the case may be. But I appreciate all of your suggestions. Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line is open at 64686. You heard Bo Ryan, the famous violence is out of the question comment from him after a game. I don't remember. Was that against the Gophers? Was that a...
No, it wasn't.
It was not, yeah.
It was, they'd lost 3 or 4 in a row.
There was some frustration. Yeah. Oh, I thought there wasn't some frustration about the officiating, too?
Could have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Violence is out of the question. One of my favorite Bo Ryan quotes. What's he up to these days? Do we know?
I'm pretty sure he lives in Palm Springs.
Ooh, not a bad... Is he neighbors with Majors?
He might be, or Craigers.
Or Craigers
has a place out there.
Right, yeah.
Plays a lot of golf.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure his banner was just raised at Kohl Center at some point this year.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. So he's going into the Hall of Fame, or he just did. One of the two.
And gracious, and what was the other term? And the
classy
other sound?
And gracious
in defeat as always, even though he had been neither in the soundbite that had just preceded.
Correct, after they lost to Duke in the title game.
Those comments to I think it was Gumbel, right? Wasn't it Greg Gumbel who said classy and gracious? One of the best.
Paul Ryan, classy and gracious in defeat.
And I think in that case, what we realized is there's a good chance that Gumbel was so busy talking to producers behind the scene.
Lori Fisher was in his ear.
That he had no idea that in this case, Bo was anything but classy and gracious. That was the beauty of the bit. Violence, I'm assuming, is out of the question tonight at Target Center. Beyond that, the obvious, my gut tells me booing is out of the question tonight at Target Center. Am I wrong? Is there a segment of the Wolves fan population that will feel, even if they're not really doing it in any sort of earnest, mean way, feel obligated? Well, yeah, he's on the other team. Now I got to boo him. Doesn't mean I hate him. Doesn't mean I'm holding it against him because he got traded away. But he's the enemy now, so I'm just going to do some quote unquote good-natured boos because I'd be shocked if there's anything beyond good-natured boos tonight. For the return, for the first time, the emotional return of Karl Anthony Towns to the Twin Cities and to Target Center.
I saw this yesterday on Timberwolves Twitter, one of your favorite places. And
outstanding.
Somebody said, if anybody boos Karl Anthony Towns, basically, they're going to take it out on you. There is going to be violence. And I sat there for a minute and I said, I can't, to your point, envision anybody booing Karl Anthony Towns tonight. I can't envision anything but a Kevin Garnett-like return to Target Center when he came with the Celtics after he was traded. And I don't think he played. I think he was hurt or it was load management or whatever. Karl's going to get a raucous round of applause tonight. There will be standing ovations. There will be tribute videos. There will be all kinds of things. Yeah. They might run multiple tribute videos to Karl Anthony Towns tonight, one in each half. I think it's going to be extremely festive and welcoming for number 32.
I think and I think there might even
it should be.
I think in some cases, there's probably some people who have a little bit of guilt. And look, Karl Anthony Towns often definitely prompted the eye roll. Okay? I don't think you have to rewrite history and pretend that there weren't aspects of the Karl Anthony Towns experience that were frustrating, that were like, oh, God, get up. Karl, get up. Stop going all the way down. Get back out on the court. Stop chirping. That stuff happened. It's all real. But I do think this is all about context. Leaving aside whether the trade, if you asked me to describe, Dan, what word would you associate with the trade from the Wolves standpoint at this point? I would say squishy. I'd say
squishy.
It's a squishy trade, as in I don't love it now, even though I endorsed it. It all feels kind of slippery to me. Like, is it ever going to congeal into some measure of substance that will say, yeah, this is why they made the deal? I'm not ruling that out. I'm also not ruling out the possibility that Julius Randle does get traded before the deadline. I really don't think that can be ruled out at all. I would call it squishy. But let's leave that aside. Even if you were skeptical of Towns, and by the way, there were stretches in certainly the Dallas series where he kind of disappeared. But I think you have to take the broader picture and say, well, whatever we think of him, it all worked well enough that they reached the Final Four.
Yep.
And we don't know where it might have gone from them. Then maybe that was going to be the high point. Maybe they were going to never get back even to that. I don't know. But to that extent, to me, that's got to be the lasting impression, the end impression of Karl Anthony Towns' time here. No matter how weird it got, no matter how weird sometimes he was, the fact is he took a number of significant steps for the good of the franchise this year or last year. There's just no denying it. He seemed to be the one player who was most mature about the strengths and weaknesses of Rudy Gobert.
No question.
And playing with him and trying to make it work with him. He clearly worked harder on his defense in terms of the way the Wolves wanted him to play it last year than he ever had before, and became at least presentable in that regard. And again, in the Denver series, he was more than presentable.
He was
in fact,
good.
in the Phoenix series, he guarded Durant some too, didn't he?
He sure did.
In terms of the size helping.
Yep.
And then offensively, he was a very consistent and effective player and their best three-point shooter. So to me, in the end of it, no matter how frustrated you were, it's, well, he got us further than we've been in 20 years. I don't know if it's going to be Garnett-like, because I think Garnett is still on that exalted spot that's different from any other player here. But I think you're right. I think it's going to be pretty positive. I'd be surprised if it isn't. And I think, as I said, leaving aside the deal and how it works, or how it's going to work, and if it's going to work out, there's no arguing with what he contributed to where they got last year. His level of investment, which has been written about again the last couple of days in the community, is undeniable. As far as we know, he never asked for a deal. There was a trade. Certainly a trade that
yep.
As far, again, who knows, but behind the scenes, anything's possible, but we don't think any of that happened. Now, I think another reason it's less likely there's going to be boos and more likely that they're going to be cheers above and beyond, to me, his legacy here, the way it ended here, is if you are squishy about the trade, you're going, damn, good to see him again, man.
Yeah, we miss him.
Yeah, we miss him. I just don't know if I like the way this is put together right now. So maybe then you have an added appreciation to say, maybe I got too down on some of that body language and getting him back up, falling down too easily, and
the
all
offensive
fouls,
yep.
Getting into foul, all that stuff. Maybe I'm too hard on him because the trade doesn't feel inspirational at this point. Now, above and beyond that, too, it's the classic irresistible force, immovable object most recently. The Wolves have suddenly put together in the last, 6-7 games, the best defense in basketball again. New York is unbelievably good offensively. I think they're top 2 or 3 in a number of analytical, statistical offensive categories. So you got that, too. You got let's see who can stop who. Can we stop? Maybe this is the ultimate test for whether this defense is figuring some stuff out. Regardless if it's an intriguing matchup in that sense, above and beyond the return of Karl Anthony Towns.
For the Cat legacy, for me, it's always going to end with the Rudy stuff, because we saw how choppy that was.
Yes.
And Karl missed a significant portion of that season.
He did.
And that's why I was cool with running it back to see what happened. Yes. And then he missed more of last season, but got himself back just in time for the playoffs. And you mentioned the Dallas series where he didn't play well. No one really played well, Ant too. But his Game 7, his whole series against Denver, and the Game 7 in the first half, one of the great games in Wolves history, where they knock off Denver in Denver, the defending champs, they have no chance to do that if Karl doesn't
the comeback. Right.
If Karl doesn't play great offense,
yes,
as opposed to, and they were down big, obviously, yes, but he kept them within striking distance in that first half,
right,
and then Ant and others took over there in the second. I'll always have good feelings about him for the way it ended here.
Let's do this. Let's break immediately, and I think, need to spend a little bit of time on the other winter sports professional franchise. Is it almost over for your Minnesota Wild? We'll give you details.
The only thing better than the holidays are holidays packed with NFL games. Kicking off Thursday, December 19th with an AFC West showdown.
Touchdown Chargers!
Then a Saturday doubleheader. 12 games Sunday, with a battle in Lambeau on Monday night.
Oh, what a play, what a catch!
And a Christmas Day doubleheader for the ages on Netflix.
Oh, sweet Marie!
That's how the NFL does the holidays.
Wow, some pretty hot text coming in to the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line before we start talking a little bit of hockey and prepare then for Sean Salisbury. The only booing tonight will be if Wolves front office members are there. That's from Doofus Doctor Guy.
Wow.
That must be a sign that he does not approve of the deal? Or is he mad at him about something else? Yeah.
Well, does front office mean potential owners, or does it mean Tim Conley?
Said front office, so I thought I'm assuming he meant Conley, yeah. There is no doubt Cat will receive a standing ovation after committing his third offensive foul in the second quarter.
Come on.
Vicious. There's some viciousness there. A 952 guy.
That will be annoying, by the way, if he comes in here and all of a sudden starts getting like every call. Like driving to the basket, flailing, and Ed Malloy, I don't even know if he's on the call, puts him at the line 15 times.
Has Tibbs been gone long enough that we're not going to bother booing him? Because he left as much more of the Darth Vader than Cat did among some basketball, there's really only one opportunity to boo Tibbs, though, and that's starting lineups.
Yeah, that's true. When it's a player, you can do it anytime they touch the ball, like we do for buckets, like we've done for others.
That's true. Royce, I don't know where he said this, said today that people in the organization were glad he was traded, didn't treat everyone graciously. I have no idea what that is related to. My only hesitation on making too much of any of that is the same thing could be said about Kevin Garnett.
Are we sure he wasn't talking about Kevin Garnett?
Maybe he was. I don't know. I assumed because there was so much Cat talk, he was referring to Cat. But Garnett, I mean, the stories are legendary, and I admit I used to dismiss some of them just because there's so much gossip that goes on inside an organization, and in the end, this is going to sound kind of cruel. The average fan is going to be less concerned about how a star player deals with the quote-unquote little people than they are whether he helps the team win.
Correct.
It's just the way. It's the law of the jungle, right? It's the nature of the world in which we live. But maybe it was. Maybe that was for KG. I'm not exactly sure. A lot of people are asking to name the Tsnownami after him. More on that a little bit later. We probably will name the Tsnownami a little earlier so that we can do it a couple times during the course of the program. This is from 612 guy. Is it almost over for the hockey team, you ask? Why do you hate the hockey team so badly? Don't even deny it. There are 3 professional teams currently in season. You have regular player guests on air from 2 of those 3. Which team do you do not? The team you hate. Your Minnesota Wild. Also, no, this is not for the record fullness. Well, dirty little secret. Before we had a regular Minnesota Timberwolf, we had a regular Minnesota Wild player, right? The goalie.
Oh, yeah.
It was whose name I can't even remember now.
Are you talking about Dubnyk?
Dubnyk.
We had Dubnyk a lot back in the day.
He became a semi-regular.
Yeah.
And
it's going back a ways.
It does go back a ways, but the fact is we did. There's no conspiracy against the Minnesota Wild.
We were scheduled to have weekly appearances with Zach Parise in 2012.
That didn't go so well after the first appearance, yeah. So, and does this guy really think I think it's over? No, I don't.
Not if he knows you.
Not if anybody who listens to this show knows I don't mean that, but there's, I think, some concern right now with another injury. We get
pretty important one.
Humiliated last night by the Panthers, 6-1, and to boot, Brock Faber gets nailed. He goes basically down to the ice, grabbing his throat as he gets back up. I don't know if we have more details on the significance of his injury, but in this case, this isn't a rip on the Wild. It's, well, cumulatively, is there a collective weight to all these injuries that are inevitably going to affect what they can do moving forward for a while? That's not a statement on them being terrible. It's a statement on a lot of bad hockey, a lot of bad, they call in the business, puck luck, right?
Sounds like Faber, by the way, is going to be okay. Not expected, I don't think, to miss any time.
Not any extended time.
Doesn't seem like
we have in several other cases already, correct?
Right.
And, it wasn't I didn't think Flower was, I didn't think that looked like Flower in his prime last night.
Well, it did for a minute in the first period, and then the floodgates opened and it was over. They need the Gus Bus back for sure. And it sounds like that's pretty close.
Eriksson X out. Trennan's out. Middleton's out for a while, right? Yeah. We all think that's going to be a bit. And we've hit what we call in the business our first sort of, I don't know what player confirmed it. Somebody did. Flower. Right now we're seeing a little adversity. We've just got to find a way through, find a way out of it, and get onto the right track. Isn't this our first 2-game losing streak too?
It is. Of the season, yeah.
So, we're hitting our first, I don't know if I'd call it a crisis yet, but maybe a mini crisis. You got a lot of equity, right? Because you have accumulated lots of points for this point in the season, which is very good. But the fact that this was their 32nd game of the season, and the fact that you haven't lost 2 in a row until game 32 is obviously extremely impressive. But we're not dominant lately. And again, I think a lot of this is, we keep hearing Gustafson's going to be back soon, right? But what does soon mean? I don't know. I'm going to believe it when I see him out there. I'm not exactly sure. And I don't even know what the prognosis is time-wise on Trennan. And what is the prognosis on Erickson Ek? Do you know?
I don't, off the top of my head.
I'm not sure.
Look for it.
I think Middleton's supposed to be out the longest, but at some point you lose that many people. Now you're up to, with Faber, that's 6, right? And you go, okay, well, let's face it, this is not a team that's blessed with an endless amount of raw, pure talent. So at some point that's going to catch up with you a little bit, and it certainly appeared to. And maybe, didn't we destroyed the defending Stanley Cup champions down there.
That was part of our good start.
Correct. And so then maybe they're saying, maybe they were interested too to say, okay, well, we want to remind people who we are, and they certainly looked a little bit like it yesterday. Speaking of injuries, I just saw a note that it looks like Geno Smith is on the fast track to start for the Seahawks against the Vikings.
He wants a piece of the Tsnownami, does he?
Maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
You're supposed to evacuate in a Tsnownami warning, but
most smart people do that.
Not understanding.
Yeah, but he's a gamer.
That's true. He's Geno.
He's you know what he is? He's a pro's pro. He's competitive. He says, "Bring it on." And Seattle becomes, now I don't know how effective he'll be, how well he'll be able to move, but that is if that ends up being true, if he ends up playing, then your challenge going to Seattle will get a little bit stiffer, one could say. Bottom of the hour pause now. Oh, real quick, one other nugget. It was a really good piece by Fred Katz, The Athletic, a good overview. Towns returning to Minnesota. And he offers the key stat here. We've all known it. The key to the Randall trade is DiVincenzo. So the number one problem right now is he has not been the player that we saw preseason and that we saw last year.
Not enough.
With the New York Knicks. Not often enough. So his vintage shot, his best shot was the corner 3. And usually hits basically 2 out of every 5. I think that's 40%.
40%.
Corner
Dan.
3-pointers. We can do that math. Corner 3s this year, 26%. All 3s, 32%. And that's something that's got to get better no matter what else he does. I like it when he's active and he can do other things and he can guard and but he's not a guy who should run the show all that much. I think that's already been revealed. It's guard, be active, make things happen, and shoot the ball in the basket. And he's not doing enough of that, and will feel a lot better about that trade if he can get to a different number. But he does not look like the same player, and that's an important part of it, leaving the Randall part of the equation to the side for the moment. Sean Salisbury on National Football League developments. He is next.
The only thing better than the holidays are holidays packed with NFL games. Kicking off Thursday, December 19th with an AFC West showdown.
Touchdown Chargers!
Then a Saturday doubleheader. 12 games Sunday with a battle in Lambeau on Monday night.
Oh, what a play! What a catch!
And a Christmas Day doubleheader for the ages on Netflix.
Oh, sweet Marie!
That's how the NFL does the holidays.
Sean Salisbury indeed back with us for a little bit a briefer segment than usual. A busy day for Mr. Salisbury, so we'll get in and get out with him. Welcome back to the program. I'll give you this as the toss-up question for you today, Mr. Salisbury. What, in your opinion, happened to Kirk Cousins in Atlanta?
I don't think it's one thing. I think that, the Atlanta's had kind of like the Raiders, kind of like the Cowboys. There's a dysfunction of from top to bottom, that they just can't quite get it right. I think they got the Penix draft, the player right. When we go back to the draft, I didn't think that this year was the year to draft him. Does that make sense? Because they had some other needs.
Mm-hmm.
And you think you spend all the guaranteed money on Cousins, who's 36 years old now, I think, and has had a tremendous career. His regular season career has been outstanding. So you figured you were going for a major upgrade, and then with that pick, you're like, well, if he's here and lives up to what we think, our backup's not. It's going to be Jordan Love right now. If it turns out like that, it's great. He's just not going to see the field because we got a good player. I'm not saying he's Rodgers, but we got a good player. Well, I think it started there. I do, and I know this sounds crazy, and I know mental toughness, and he's a good leader and all that stuff. But it can't help. But if you're that guy, I remember back, Dan, and you remember when Elway was playing in Denver and they drafted Tommy Maddox at 20 years old from UCLA?
Right. Sure.
And I can remember talking to John. They were bothered by that. The people in his camp were bothered by that. Here's Elway, a Hall of Famer. So it doesn't matter who it is. Hell, I remember when Jay Cutler was in Denver and they talked about trading for Matt Castle, did Josh McDaniels, and that kind of bothered him. That was the beginning of the end before he went to Chicago. So it doesn't matter. There's still that feeling of, I don't know if insecurity's right. I'm not putting it on Kirk. I'm just saying from my vantage point, here's how I feel. Is one, I think from the get-go it bothered him, and it probably should have. I think that they had high hopes for Penix and probably drafted him a few picks sooner than somebody else would have, but the kid's a great talent, and he can rip it. And he had a great couple years there and did his thing in Indiana, overcome the injuries, and I thought that maybe the injuries would even make him fall further, right? But they didn't, and they loved him. So I think that's part of it. I think that they didn't do him a service with the players, and you could have got him more players. He's played horribly the last 6 weeks. He has played – if this was the Cousins that came into the league, he'd have been cut. Yeah. His game has been awful. And I know he knows how to play because we know you've seen it up close and personal. The guy can play, but I think it's – and I said this, Dan, in August. I don't even know if I said it to you, but on my show I know I did. I said, here's what's going to happen, though, in training camp. You get a guy who's a veteran and thrown for 8 million yards, and you're paying a lot of money. The first game he has bad, the whispers will start because of where you drafted Penix. The second game, by the third game, if it's a trend, they're going to be screaming at the high heavens just because of you drafted the guy behind him. Well, 6 games into it, they've been screaming, and you've made the decision to go, and it's hard to go back now, especially late in the season. And the fact that you're still in a playoff race in that division, that tells you it's got to be doubly bad. I don't know how he'll respond from it. I don't know if he'll get his job back because his glove was left on the mound. But I think it's poor play, and I think that he has not been aggressive, and he's been aggressive to throw it to the other team. Yeah. But he's made decisions that almost feel, Dan, like his mind's muddied part of this. Where it's not just physical. There's a mental part. So no matter how tough you are, Dan, there's that feeling of insecurity that every great player I've ever seen, some it drives, and they become better, even though they don't want to admit that it drives them, and some it affects. And I think it's pretty clear that this has affected Kirk Cousins and it's not just him, but his performance. He's got to play better, and I'm shocked by his last 6 games.
Yeah, it's been a bad stretch for sure. Yeah. Do you believe next year anybody's going to want him as a starter? Do you think this is effectively it, or do you think the way this league is that there's still somebody who might want to sniff?
Somebody will love him. Somebody will still say, they'll say, we can fix it in Atlanta. They didn't give, whatever. Because I've seen there's enough body of work. Now, I don't think that overnight he got old. You know what I'm saying? I know he's 36, but I think he's okay. And he is coming off the injury. And we know that injury is very difficult to overcome. So while I'm not giving him a hall pass, I think, the confidence of putting your foot in the ground and doing all the things that it takes for a quarterback and being aggressive, you're still feeling that out regardless of what people want to say. You just are. So I do. I look right now and I think, okay, what if Cousins is better than Mason Rudolph? I mean, not that he's not a veteran. Yeah. And Will Levis has got a long way to go on the decision-making side that could learn a lot from picking Cousins' brain after Cousins has gone through some of this. Right now, he'd start in Tennessee tomorrow. I do. Now, if I'm him, I don't take away my no trade clause. If I'm him, we talked about the Darnold, the business of putting him on, franchising him. If you're Cousins, you got guaranteed money.
Yeah.
You make them cut you. Because that team would cut you in a heartbeat if it was less,
No question.
You know how the business world. So you make them cut you, and then you get the double dip, kind of like the Russ Wilson situation, right? And so you go, and now look at him. So if you're telling me, see, I think Cousins is a better player throwing the football than Russ Wilson was at their time of distress. Does that make sense in Denver and here? I do, Dan. I do. I think there'll be a place now. It's going to be a lot less salary than he's making now, but all that salary's in it. He getting it all that guaranteed money. So I do, and I think somebody will. Now, you may get him on the cheap, but I can name a half a dozen teams or 5 teams he could start for tomorrow, but he's going to have to play better than that or it wouldn't last long. You and I both know it, but I don't think he's done if that's what you want as a starter.
Have the Lions, by losing to Buffalo and then also having even more injuries, including their number one running back get hurt, all that pile up, do you think they have opened the door, or that situation has opened the door to the Vikings having a real shot to steal the division?
I absolutely do. Even though I had picked Detroit to go to the Super Bowl, Dan, it's like, it feels, I mean, I know it's happened before, but it feels unprecedented. You look at the injury list, it's crazy, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And then you add, that duel at running back, and I think Gibbs is a really good player, but Montgomery, the 1-2 punch has been awesome. I do. And Dan Campbell, with all that aggressiveness the week before paid off. Last week, why you would onside kick in that spot was just too much belief in your team, right? And then you got to warn him you're onside kicking. I don't think he should have done that. So that aggressiveness, and you end up losing a game against what may be the best team in football right now in Buffalo. So I do. I think the door's open. And now the pressure to score 38. No, they scored 40 points when they blink anyway, but now the pressure of knowing it's real. And Aaron Glenn's got maybe the toughest job on the planet because there's Super Bowl expectations. You got all these injuries. Now you got to have backups and piece them together and on short notice. I mean, it's crazy. Do I think they're still capable of going to Super Bowl? I do, because I think they can score from the parking lot. But they're in a bind, and they are in a serious bind because you're going to run into Buffalo and teams that can outscore you in Super Bowl, but also, the Packers can score.
Yes, they can.
The Vikings know how to score. The Philadelphia Eagles, if they're going right and they can get some possessions, they have the potential to score. So, yeah, I do. I think the door is open, and I think it's not only open, but I think it's wide open for you to jump in and take it. And the Vikings just plod along. They keep plodding along, playing good defense, getting after it, protecting the football for the most part. And then last week, their third down defense, they held them 1 of 12. They were all outstanding. I think this is a last week of the season type thing. I do. I think they're going to hang on. I don't think Detroit's lost their last regular season game yet.
The Vikings, of course, play in Seattle next week. The latest information seems to be that Geno Smith is practicing. There is hope that he's going to be, from their standpoint, able to play. How much more challenging does that game become for the Vikings if it's Smith going rather than the backup?
A lot more, because his accuracy, he's one of the more accurate throwers we have in the league. We saw it since he's been a starter there. Kind of like, Darnold, his career got rejuvenated by a switching of teams, and a coach bought into him, and look what he did. Then a new coach comes in. They're aggressive. Their perimeter people are pretty good too, with Lockett and the big fella from Ole Miss. They got some players, Metcalf. They got some players, and they can run it. They're physical at the point of attack. So, and he's an accurate thrower of the football. They don't have a problem being aggressive, and they're not going to back off if they have some kind of lead. And they're in a playoff fight themselves. And even an 85% Geno Smith makes them better.
Yeah.
He puts the ball in some good places. So I think it's if he can walk, I believe he'll probably play. I do, and I think that it poses problems. But you know what Brian's going to do? He's going to play aggressive football, right?
Sure.
He is going to try to force him off his mark to see if that ankle can handle it. He's really good at going and seeing blood in the water. So I would expect a really good Vikings team to show up, but they got some perimeter people that if you don't get hands on them, they can kill you on a vertical stretch. They're really good.
Merry Christmas. We'll leave it there because I know you got some other stuff to get to, and we'll catch up after the Christmas break. Thanks for the time as always, sir.
And thank you so much, Dan. I do appreciate all fall long being on your show. I think you're outstanding, and you and Guardsy are the best around, and it's an honor for me to come on, and I wish you guys a Merry Christmas.
We love having you. We'll talk in a couple of weeks. Thanks, Sean.
Thanks. Okay.
Sean Salisbury helping us out. A little shorter a segment than usual with him, and that's going to give us a little bit of time to get some reaction texts going via the Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line, which is 64686. And I think, a lot of times with the emotional naming of the first Tsnownami of the winter season, we milk it and we go with it late in the show. maybe that's not fair to people. Maybe we go with it soon. In fact, maybe we go with it right now.
Tsnownami! It's not about the Tsnownami, it's about what the Tsnownami represents!
So there it is. I think the committee made the right choice. There was a lot of sentiment to keep it a little simpler with Kat coming back to town tonight.
Yep.
I don't think any of us in the committee would have had a problem with that. But I don't know how many more shots we're going to have at the other one that we ultimately went with. And it felt timely. In fact, very timely, because we just talked a lot with Sean Salisbury about the Kirk Cousins situation. So I think ultimately the committee made the right choice. There's going to be another opportunity with Kat. I'm pretty sure there's going to be another opportunity or two with Sam Darnold if you think he needs to be represented, which I think he certainly would be good fodder for it. But I think that one makes sense. So remind me, we'll play it again maybe in the 5 o'clock hour as well for the listeners headed home there, if there's anybody left on the road by then.
The one thing that and they can always listen on the iHeartRadio app wherever they are.
That's true.
On this snow day. So,
That's true.
And I'm guessing a lot of people are today. The one thing the Tsnownami naming committee can't be is emotional.
No.
Right? We have to be detached. We have to be objective.
And occasionally snarky.
And oftentimes snarky. And so we can't let the emotion of Karl coming back cloud the judgment that that's a layup of a Tsnownami name with Kirk Cousins being benched this week. And Kat will have, 50 in the playoffs when it's April and we've lost in the play-in round.
Wow.
And got 2 feet of snow dumped on us while we're trying to watch the Masters. And then Kat, advances into the Eastern Conference Finals to take on the Celtics. We'll have time to name the Karl Anthony Towns Tsnownami then,
We will, won't we? Yeah,
if I'm looking forward and projecting.
You're probably right about that. Yeah, I think it's a good choice. I'm glad we got it. I feel like we didn't have our first Tsnownami last year till after Christmas. Am I wrong?
I don't think you're wrong. It sounds right.
Didn't we have a brown Christmas here last year?
I think we did. Yeah. I think we did.
In any case, somebody has suggested, and maybe there's something to this. We were talking with Sean also about the injury-ravaged Detroit Lions. Are the Minnesota Wild the Detroit Lions in National Hockey League right now? I mean, great record, but we keep losing players. Now, they're in double digits. But again, a football team's larger, too.
More.
It's all proportional. Yep. But we've lost a bunch. Maybe that's... But, I mean, what's interesting about the Lions is I still would classify them as dangerous. I still think that they're going to be a tough out because, as Salisbury said, they can score. Now, if they lose Gibbs, then all bets would probably be off. I don't even know who they have behind him, but I have to think it's whatever they have left is nowhere near as good as the 1-2 punch they had previously. But they still, their problem right now is they are obligated to score close to 40. And that's tough to do because even great offenses are going to have a couple mistakes here or there. And so I hope the Wild don't end up in double digits on injury. That would be unfortunate. But right now, maybe we're getting close to that level. I feel like there's more injuries already this year than last year. Am I wrong? Or am I forgetting too many from last year?
No, they had some because they hit after. Was it after they fired Evison or right around the time?
Yeah, they had a surge. Right afterwards, and then they faded.
And so they had that issue. It's a little presumptuous, though, for me, and this is going to get me in trouble.
Uh-oh. Are you about to get in trouble with the hockey community?
I might. But the Lions were leading at halftime of the NFC Championship game a year ago and entered the season as a prohibitive Super Bowl contender.
So you think it's a little presumptuous yet?
I think it's extremely presumptuous to go, man, the Wild are just like the Lions.
Yeah.
Just had this wagon of a team that's just been derailed by injury. Let me put it to you this way. The Lions' expected goals for is higher than the Wild's expected goals for, whatever the analytic is that Bill Guerin hates.
So our schedule the rest of the way is what? Johnny Athletic's going to be with us at the top of the hour.
Correct.
Will he already be at Target Center? It's a late game again tonight.
I don't know. He was at Target Center earlier because they had shoot-around stuff.
Yeah.
I assume he went home in between. Maybe not. Maybe he bunkered down because of the Tsnownami.
Picks are scheduled for 4:30. Gessling will join us at 5:30. I think Gilmore's practicing now.
He practiced yesterday. They had a walkthrough. He was full participant.
So it's looking a little bit more promising that he's missed the last 2 games.
I think that's right.
That he might be back for Seattle. Yeah, we were talking, was it Monday, about the Vikings horseshoe, which I still think they're getting some things going their way. Now, obviously it's a little less of a horseshoe if Geno Smith plays, but the door has already been opened for them in some significant ways. It's just a matter of whether they can, going back to the Lions situation, if they can indeed take advantage of it. What is the spread in that game, by the way? Well, I guess I'll wait because we got the picks at 4:30, Vikings, Seattle. And how funky is it because of, the questionable nature of who's going to start a quarterback for Seattle? Because I got to believe Geno Smith's worth a couple of points.
So if you had to guess right now, I'll tell you what the spread is. What
I'm going to say right now, Seattle by 1.5.
The line we will be using, DraftKings, like we use every week, right now have the Minnesota Vikings as 3-point favorites.
Is that right?
Which means we will be going 3.5, so we don't have any pushes.
Interesting. Now, do you think, was that number based on the belief that Smith was not going to play, or that even with Smith practicing today and they already know that and they said, we don't care, it's still Vikings by 3 or 3.5?
I think they obviously always know kind of the info. I think it's because they watched him against the Packers last week.
Yeah.
Said, okay, this team's no good.
Yeah. Well,
even with the clouds.
Even with the clouds and even with, what was the other thing?
70% of the fans are underneath the awning.
That was the Seifert Nugget, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it was Seifert. Yeah.
And that makes it louder?
Well, because the noise goes, now I'm doing physics or science or whatever.
Is this any more real than the low clouds? I mean, are either of them meaningful?
The roof
when it comes to
sounds
noise?
more realistic than the clouds. But
there's no roof.
But there's
kind of a roof.
But they're covered by something.
Yeah,
so the sound is bouncing back and forth, is what they say.
I don't know. Well, maybe.
I'm not a scientist, but that's what they tell us.
I guess it's possible.
Follow the science.
Is that what they like to tell us?
SeaTac, or whatever their stadium's called.
Follow exactly that. I'm going to save, because Salisbury reminded us he wanted to talk some NIL stuff, but there was no time to do that because his schedule was shortened today. And I also want to get to MVP stuff with him on who I don't know if he has a vote. Gannon has a vote. We had Rich Gannon on last week. And I think the betting money right now the betting money right now for MVP is
Josh Allen.
The betting money for Coach of the Year is KOC right now. Right?
As it should be.
Unless they lose their last 3.
Yeah, they can see that.
That's going to take some of the starch out of it. The record will still be good, but it'll be a long way from here to there.
They also, the NFL media owes them one from 2 years ago when they gave it to Brian Daboll.
Daboll deserved it.
He was 9-7.
Well, yeah, but he had nothing to work with there.
It's Saquon Barkley.
Well, yeah.
9-7? He's going to get you a Coach of the Year award?
He kicked our ass in the playoffs.
And KOC righted that wrong and got Ed Donatel right out of here.
Is that what he did?
Yes.
Yeah. And then he got his quarterback, Daniel Jones.
Think about it.
To prepare for, the next project, the next reconditioning of a quarterback, right? The remaking of a talented quarterback.
Will there be a point in time, I guess it depends on how long KOC coaches, where every quarterback in the National Football League
we can only hope.
has spent some time around him?
Well, we said, what was it? It was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, we threw out the question of what would be the ultimate KOC quarterback challenge. And I think the ultimate we came up with was Ponder.
Yes.
Right? I mean, that's the one we went with. I think we mentioned Josh Freeman, too. But Ponder, because Freeman actually had a minute in the National Football League. It felt like Ponder had one great game. That was the game against the Packers. And then he got hurt in that game and he wasn't available for the postseason. We had to go, who do you have to go with to start that game? It was Joe Webb, yeah. And then everybody was bitter because we ran with Webb a couple times successfully, and apparently all we needed to do was run Webb 52 times, and we would have won the game.
He picked up a really big first down on the first drive. I remember it.
Utterly and completely overrated, to be honest. Lumen Field is a parabola? Parabola, is that how it's pronounced? Or is it a parabola? Parabola. How do you pronounce that?
Parabola.
Parabola. All sound does reflect onto the field by design.
There you go.
Okay. So it's not the low clouds.
It's a parabolic mic is what we call it.
It's not the low clouds. Is that what we're being told now? For years, we've been told it was the low clouds.
I think that has... Well, by
you
Paul
think that's
Allen.
legend? Well, he's
He's
great
an authority.
meteorological mind.
National treasure.
There's no question about that.
He's the one that has been going with it.
Gerby will be with us at the bottom of the hour. We're moving the picks up again a day. Gessling to talk more Vikings at 5:30. I'm trying to wedge in a couple of A-section items. I don't even know if I'm going to have time to, but I'm going to give it my best shot. But when we come back, let's check in with John Athletic. I got to ask him a couple of tough questions from a trade standpoint involving his favorite basketball team, the Minnesota Timberwolves. We'll examine that. We'll hear what he has to say that Cat told him earlier today in the media scrum and what he might expect from the crowd this evening as well.
Hey, it is Ryan Seacrest. There's something so thrilling about playing Chumba Casino. Maybe it's the simple reminder that with a little luck, anything is possible. ChumbaCasino.com has hundreds of social casino-style games to choose from with new game releases each week. Play for free anytime, anywhere for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
The only thing better than the holidays are holidays packed with NFL games. Kicking off Thursday, December 19th with the AFC West Showdown.
Touchdown Chargers!
Then a Saturday doubleheader. 12 games Sunday. With a battle in Lambeau on Monday night.
Oh, what a play! What a catch!
And a Christmas Day doubleheader for the ages on Netflix.
Oh, sweet Marie!
That's how the NFL does the holidays.
You wake up, put on your Ray-Ban Meta glasses. You're living all in. You realize you need coffee. So you say,
Hey, Meta, how do I make a latte?
Brew 2 shots of espresso.
after Meta AI gets you caffeinated, you're ready for some beats.
Hey, Meta, play hip-hop music.
You head to meet some friends, but can't remember the place.
Hey, Meta, call Eva.
Ray-Ban Meta glasses, the next generation of AI glasses. Just say, hey, Meta, to harness the power of Meta AI. Shop now at meta.com/smartglasses.